Hey. Hi everybody. Shelfie here. I am an illustrator and comic artist. Technically an animation student. But sadly I don't actually do enough animating, funny enough. I am the creator of the webcomic Judas Kiss on Webtoon Canvas. If you like detectives, mystery, magic, and two hot men, please, maybe it might tickle your fancy. Link in the description below if you're interested. Now, I've been thinking about doing this for a while, but never quite know how to go about it. I'm here today to talk about comics. I love comics. I've been doing them for years, and if you've heard about OCTs or original character tournaments, back in DeviantArt, yeah. So I asked Twitter if anyone was interested to hear a comic tutorial from me, and I got a surprising amount of responses from that, which leads to this video. Sadly, this isn't quite a tutorial, but more so about my process in making comics. But I'll talk a little bit about my personal do's and why I do them. Without further ado, let's get to them. First off, I use Clip Studio Paint EX to draw, and of course a drawing tablet. I'll be drawing a future page of Judas Kiss' first chapter as I go along and talk about comics. Now, I know a lot of people start their comics with scripts. That is an absolutely valid way to start, but sadly, I don't vibe with scripts very much. I get confused doing them, if anything. No brains. I typically go straight to thumbnails and do my dialogues during that stage as well. There's a number of ways to do your thumbnails. There is no right or wrong answer to this, only that it's clear enough for you to understand, or if you are collaborating with someone, like a partner or an editor, it needs to be clear enough for them to understand as well. These are my thumbnails for Judas Kiss' first chapter. They're a mess, and yes, they are very, very tiny. Some people like to do them big, but I prefer doing them small like this. The reason being, it helps me see the comic as a whole and see the flow of it better as well. Flow and readability is something very important to me personally, though generally I think that is a rather important thing anyway. But making them small makes it easier for me to see and read the story as a whole. That's why. Now, during the thumbnailing stage, it's really when I think of everything. Dialogue, paneling, flow. Paneling is something I get commented or asked a lot about. And I'm really happy to see that people like how I do paneling, so thank you. I try pretty hard not to stick with regular squares and rectangles for paneling, and that might be wrong. But I just find it boring, personally. I love adding diagonals and dynamic panels in my comics, regardless of whether or not the page contains action. Reading a lot of comics and studying how your favorite comic artist does their panels also really, really help. So do that. Read lots of comics. One thing I learned is that the panels tells the story, but the page sets the panels. You can and should use your whole page to tell your story. You are not limited to drawing within the panels. Now, I'm no comic student, I'll say it now, so those who are and see this video might think it's bullshit. Well, you have the right to your opinion. This is just mine. One of the reasons why I lay out my panels a certain way is actually simply variety. It's a personal preference when doing comics. I like having variations of panels from page to page. It makes them interesting, I think. Another big reason, and probably the first reason, is atmosphere and flow. Panels control the flow of time in your comic. Big panels, time flows slower. Small panels, time flows faster. I think I read something like that before, but sadly I don't quite remember the details. So, oops. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. Anyway, because I pour everything onto the thumbnails stage, like panels, dialogue, heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears, I usually get most excited during them. Once that was done, it was all about discipline. There's not a lot of interesting ways, or not a lot of interesting things I can say about the rest of the process, sadly. But it's, because it's really just about doing them. But here's a few things I can say. I start with the panels first, and then go to dialogues and bubbles before I get sketching. You can probably see that in the beginning of this video, actually. It's good to add your dialogue and speech bubble first before you start drawing everything else, so you don't have to worry about placement or like dialogue placements later in the future. Oftentimes when you do dialogue like later after you're done with everything, placement becomes a lot more difficult. You could have spent like a lot of time drawing something only for it to get covered up by a speech bubble, and that can be a bummer. So I suggest always doing them first for better placement. Another thing is bubble placement can be important for the flow as well. Bubbles help aid the eye flow for your readers, so it's good to keep that in mind. Might be a bit difficult to kind of grasp at first, but it should come to you like in time, which happened to me too. Read a lot, really read a lot. Once you're done with like sketches, once I'm done with sketches, I can go to the next step, which is line art. Or I go straight to sketching the next page if I don't really, feel like line arting yet. Either works, really. A little fun fact for Judas Kiss. I use grayscale, and this is because I used to do a webcomic in full color before called Broquest and Tepas. And that took like a long time to do. These grayscales are a lot quicker to do because I have a handy little color palette I can pick colors from. And actually, this is the fun fact. I have very, very few colors to pick from. That's right. JK or Judas Kiss reuses like five different colors for the whole comic, and that makes flatting like really, really fast, like a few minutes or so, because you already have everything prepared and stuff. I don't usually do shading for Judas Kiss, but if I want to add dramaticness, sometimes I will. And simply just add a multiply layer over the grayscales, and voila, instant drama. Once the grays are done or added, it's finished. There you go, a whole comic. I completely skipped over line art because there's really not a lot to say about that, but funny enough, it's my favorite drawing process probably. And I think that is all. Okay, so to summarize, basically it's thumbnails first. Then in the sketching stage, start with panels and dialogue before doing the actual drawing. After that, finish the lining process and have a color palette ready to easily flat your pages, and that's it. I hope that's been somewhat informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. I'll see what I can do to answering them if you have any. If you think this video has been interesting or informative to you, then please feel free to like and maybe subscribe. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.